I'm very pleased to moderate this debate, and I don't want to waste any more time, so I'm going to introduce the debaters. You have their bios in your book, but I'll just say something personal about them. Going to the left, which is always a good direction, my left anyway, good direction to go. Jan Masaoka is right here. She was on the very first debate team at the very first GIFT conference. How many people were at that conference? So you remember, Jan did very well there. We're delighted to have her back. She's the executive director of Cal Nonprofits, and they have a booth back here, and she'll be there for some of the day, so you can talk to her afterwards about that. And I was really happy she came back because she's absolutely one of the smartest and most creative people that I've had the privilege of working with. Ann Ryan, to her left, works at Compass Point. She's a real thought partner with myself and Steve Liu on our project Nonprofits Talking Taxes. Is really, I think, one of the rising stars in the notion of putting the common good at the front end of everything that we do in the social justice nonprofit sector. Maria Poblet, they said in the wrong order, threw me off there, is the executive director of Causa Justa, Just Cause. She's very involved in Occupy Oakland, and she's probably the only person actually that personally from experience knows the arguments on both sides of our proposition. She's a longtime activist, and of course, Libero Della Piana at the end was the moderator of the debate at the last conference. Some of you will remember. He's the only person up here, I think, that actually has real debate training besides myself. And Libero and I are absolutely in love, with debate, and we just love that. And we welcome him from New York City, and he was very involved in Occupy at Levati Park. So I want to just read the resolution, and then we will start. The affirmative starts. This team will start, followed by the negative. We'll have 2 rounds of rebuttals and closing statements. And then kind of a fun thing we do at the very end is we ask the presenters, if they want to share anything about their own actual opinion, because remember, they're arguing extremes. This may not represent anything like their opinions, to share their own actual opinion about the resolution. This is the resolution. Whereas the framing of We Are the 99%, started by Occupy Wall Street, is one of the most important new developments for progressives in decades. And whereas it has captured the imagination of people around the world and created a moment that needs to be converted into a long-term movement for social change. Therefore, be it resolved that the priority for progressive people should be to build nimble, non-organization movements rather than to build social justice, nonprofit 501c3s. So let the games begin.
I was planning to lob insults, but now I won't. All right, so let me start by asking this question. What if there was a national campaign started by all of the important progressive nonprofit organizations to end economic disparities? And it would be led and sponsored by the Center for Community Change, ACORN, the Center for Budget and Policy Studies, the United Methodist Church, SCIU, the NAACP, the Japanese American Citizens League. Oh, that's right, they already did that. All of these organizations have initiated campaign after campaign with branding strategies and great taglines for every single decade as long as we can remember, and none of them did anything like what the Occupy movement did to change the national dialogue. And what if we had the great, oh, thank you, of green, think green, all right. So, and what if we had all the research studies that we needed to show that poor people are actually poor? What if we had all the apps that we needed to raise $1.50 at a time to support our movements? What if we had mapping tools that showed where all the child care centers were and all the polling places were? Oh, right, we have all of those. So what if instead of everybody was busy and stopped building tools for activists, designing apps for activists, and training activists on how to raise money, and instead we're just activists?
Now, before I start speaking for activists myself, I just want to quickly make it clear that I'm not related at all to the vice presidential nominee for the Republican Party. But In all seriousness, we do good work and hard work in nonprofits every day, and that work shows us our current reality, which is that for the people on the margins, more likely to be communities of color and immigrant communities, and for all of us down the line, there's one choice, which is dramatic, sweeping, structural change or death. Now, I know what you've all chosen, and in all your nonprofit work, we try and fight that, but we know as fundraisers that what we do needs to multiply tenfold, 100-fold if we're really going to get to where we want to be. And nonprofits can do some, but movements can do so much more. And we work every day to dismantle this structure that's built on racism and sexism and exploitation and all these other prejudices. And there's a corporate interest machine that works every day to keep that structure going and profits quite healthily off of that structure. And what do we do as nonprofits? We go to members of that machine and we say, hey, will you share some of those profits with us that you've made off the structure that we don't even like? And when they write us that check, they enter into a position where they have a significant say over what we do and the change we're trying to make. And we got into this work to be accountable to the communities and the causes that we serve. But when we cash that check, our accountability shifts. So when you're faced with the choice of sweeping dramatic change or death, who is it that you want to be accountable to? The people who are profiting off the structure we have now, or the people who are saying, no, we can build something better? And so with this relationship, 501c3s, they really can only do so much, but movements, they can do so much more. Occupy and all the other movements, they don't rely heavily on funds for rent and administrative costs, and no one's participation is contingent on a paycheck. And because of that, they can stay accountable to the communities and the ideas that inspired them. And in any historical movement, from Occupy to the Underground Railroad, people gave gifts to support and resources to support, but I don't remember ever hearing Harriet Tubman package and produce a success story of how that gift was used, or write a 5-page report quantifying that success in people healed or meals served. It just doesn't happen because movements, they're not about exchange, they're about relationships, and they're about hope. And when you join a movement, you join people you come together with people to share ideas and bolster hope and share food and tell your story and heal your wounds and march together and dance together and sing together and stand and say, we want something better. We want dramatic, sweeping structural change, and we've come down to this park to make it happen. Only organic movements can make that happen. Funding cannot. We are the 99%. It's a household phrase, and it's fundamentally changed the conversation in our country. And no grant or grants could have made that happen, and I don't know any foundation that would have funded it to begin with, unless someone out there knows a program officer that'll give you 50 grand to set up camp in a public park, in which case, please, I'll take their name. Because the people who have profited off the status quo, they don't want to see it changed. So I'll ask you again, who is it that you want to be accountable to? Thank you.
All right, speaking for the negative.
I ask you first not to be impressed by the fact that the affirmative shared their opening remarks. They're trying to appeal to the crowd. But I ask you to appeal only to reason and to truth and the facts. The fact is that we're all committed to the 99% and the interests of the 99%. That's not the question. The question posed by the affirmative resolution is how best to serve the 99%. Isn't that so? And while the affirmative sounds good, sounds revolutionary and radical with their little phrases, In fact, it is folly. It is a self-congratulatory and hollow position. In fact, it does a disservice to the 99% because it's the road to failure and defeat. We must have a criteria by which to judge this resolution. And I argue that that criteria is not what feels the best to a room full of organizers and activists. It is not what appeals to our internal values or our druthers. The only criteria which we can use is what best serves the vast majority of people in this country who struggle every day for life and for a living. And I think that the affirmative resolution does not meet that criteria. It's clear that movements are essential to progressive social change, to making things happen, that movements are what wrap us up, energize us, that draw people in who have not been active before, but get caught up in the moment, in the heat of history. And transforming those moments into movements is a key piece of the task that we face. But without organization, without institutions, without structures, those movements are doomed to dissipate and fail. Isn't that so? How many exciting moments have we seen come and go? How many dramatic actions that turn to dust? In fact, if we look now, what is the legacy of Occupy? It is the phrase and the concept of the 99%. Isn't that the main legacy of Occupy? But it isn't lasting change. What change was achieved? And I would say that's largely because of the lack of institutional, organizational legacy. The affirmative argument is that institutions and organizations compromise the independence of movements, that they compromise the values of movements. But in fact, any movement without an anchor of an organization or an institution, they're really doomed to be a pawn of someone else's agenda, aren't they? Aren't they doomed to come and go on the waves of the moment, whatever group comes along and has a base? True independence only comes through developing or linking to existing organizations for the long haul. Because we don't want just change, we want sustainable change. We want change that's lasting. We know that the changes we need, that the 99% needs, aren't going to come in a day or a week or a month or even in a year. The changes the 99% needs is the change that needs to be there for the long haul. And organization is required for that. Lastly, on fundraising. We all know that money is needed for organization. But isn't it also true that organization is needed for money? That you cannot sufficiently raise and sustain movements without organization? Every group in this room knows the experience of trying to raise grassroots money, not just foundation money, but grassroots money. And without structures, without organization, without members and constituents committed to a vision and to an organization, how much harder it is to raise and sustain grassroots fundraising. I would argue, in closing, that the affirmative has put forward a very appealing, a very fanciful notion of progressive social change. But if we look at the history of change in this country and in this world, has it ever come without the grounding of institutions and organizations that are here for the long haul? I don't think so, and that's why the affirmative must fall.
First affirmative rebuttal.
On my way here today, I was looking at, some of you may be familiar with some e-cards, and if you're not, you don't need to be to get this card that was written, and it said, "I don't think Occupy Wall Street is any more disorganized than my workplace." And what Occupy Wall Street did is it showed us that there is a way to do democracy in a new structure. And if you read accounts and if you've been to a General Assembly, you can see how it is really quite organized. And I'm reading a quote of someone who was writing about their experience of the General Assembly. It said that people seem to be taking care of each other, and there seemed to be a general feeling of solidarity, and it really was less organized than I thought it would be. And they really did get some things done. And I don't think we're trying to make the argument that nonprofits didn't help Occupy, because they were definitely there. But Occupy and other movements jump us forward in this getting the progressive ideas out there much more strongly and much more quickly, and really change the national dialogue in a way that no nonprofit or coalition of nonprofits or network can really do. And the keynote yesterday, she talked about how often we just talk to each other, and our ideas and our passion are siloed. And what Occupy did, and what so many movements do, it's not folly to engage the rest of the people out there, those salvageables in the voting block, in a way that they've never felt engaged before. Because I don't know the number exactly of how many people were at Occupy, but I have a feeling that it wasn't the same number of people who support nonprofits every day and every year with their funds. And finally, we work in a world today where there is more chance for horizontal democracy and for the way that the General Assembly was built at Occupy, because we've got technology that doesn't require the top-down organization. And I don't feel comfortable advocating for top-down organization and hierarchy in this day and age anymore. I'm sorry, I don't. Because social media really makes it possible to engage people who aren't there, who didn't actually come, but still care and can still be a part of the conversation and can still donate online.
Libero, thank you for making our argument so well for us. What you pointed out to this group was that movements, not organizations, appeal to people's values, draw in people who have not been active before, and leave legacies in the form of nonprofit organizations. I couldn't have said it better myself. The fact is that every organization stands on the shoulders of a movement. Environmental justice stands on the shoulders of the environmental movement. Domestic violence organizations stand on the shoulders of the women's movement. All of our organizations came out of and continue to stand on the shoulders of movements. And so for us to have completely turned our attention to organization building and to have turned it away from movement building is a complete misplacement of priorities. We have to give back and pay forward to those movements on whose shoulders we stand, not just sit on them and enjoy the view.
Just a little temperature check, remembering this is the green team, this is the red team. How are we doing? You can raise 2 cards also. All right, a lot of 2 cards. Wow, we're getting some ideas going. Okay, rebutting for the negative.
Jan, I think it's interesting you thank me for making your argument while making mine. It is true. Many social justice organizations do stand on the shoulders of movements. Exactly my point. Movements come and go, but the legacy of movements is organization. Any movement that we remember that had historic impact leaves behind structure, or else it's a movement that goes with the winds of history. Isn't that the point? And let me just remind everyone what the resolution is. The question before us is not movement or organization. The affirmative argues the absurd position that we need movement without organization. And isn't that exactly what we're arguing here today? Rather, I would say, before I pass it to my partner, that the D word has been dropped here. Democracy. Oh. So movements are democratic. Occupy is a model of democracy. So whoever gets themselves down to the assembly gets a say. And what about the rest of us? What about those of us who didn't know about it, who didn't realize that important issues of the day were being debated by a group of folks who may not even be from our community?
¿Y qué tal los que hablábamos español o chino o otros idiomas?
That's right. What about the composition of movements? What about the representation of underrepresented communities? There's a lot of talk of hierarchy and top-down, but organizations don't have to be hierarchical and top-down. That's a question for us to address. So again, the question before us is not organization or movement. The affirmative is arguing for movement without organization, and that I don't think anyone can agree with.
And after coming together in the broad movement spaces, and while coming together in the broad movement spaces, we, the 99%, more than anything, need a strategy to overthrow the 1%. They're not going to give it up because we had a very democratic meeting. They're not going to give it up because a lot of us came to the meeting. They're not even going to give it up if we get in really fierce pitch battles with the cops and win some street corner for 2 days. In order to have a strategy, we need organization. That's the only way we can divide the work of overthrowing the 1%, because I can't do it by myself. I need a collective, and it needs to be accountable, hold me accountable, and build our strategy to overthrow the 1%.
All right. I'm going to give you permission to be a little more loud, and heck, you've been so polite with your cards, but I can see some of you are just like, ah, you know, yes, I agree. Oh, no, now I agree with them. Okay, so we have one more round. We have one more round of rebuttals. Oh, I'm sorry. I lost my place. Yes, we're on closing statements. I'm sorry. Forgive me. I got so into the rebuttals and thinking what I would say. I'm the moderator. All right. Closing statement. Yes, for the affirmative.
The affirmative team has decided to just leave you with a poem that we wrote for you that we hope you'll hold in your hearts, and it will inspire you as you do what it is that you choose to overthrow the 1%, and what it is that you really think is going to actually overthrow the 1%, and what you really think it takes. So with their apologies to very talented poet Mr. Gil Scott-Heron, the revolution will not be brought to you by the Rockefeller Foundation. The barricades will not be manned by United Way volunteers. Our picket signs won't be designed by pro bono corporate art designers. And we won't raise money by getting votes in the Pepsi Challenge. The revolution won't be built on entrepreneurial spirit. The revolutionaries will not all wear Toms. The revolution will not be powered by solar panels, and the revolution will not be adopted by Angelina Jolie. At the head of the march won't be the foundation program officer. At the head of the march won't be the professor of nonprofit management. We won't have a branding strategy or a theory of change, but the philanthropic consultant industrial complex will tweet about us. So come on, have a beer. Change happens. Thank you.
Okay, just a little temperature check-in before we have the final statement. Green team, red team, both. Oh my goodness, we're getting the ideas going. All right, closing for the negative.
I'm a little nervous, so show me some love if you got it. Don't lie to me, though. Don't lie to me. I don't like to be lied to. So this is a fundraising conference, right? Okay, you guys are into fundraising. It's a serious part of the project of building a social movement? Okay, so raising money for a non-organization movement is like putting biodiesel in a bicycle. There is nowhere for it to go, and it won't get you any further than you were going to get to in the first place. Movements emerge spontaneously, they critique injustice, they inspire millions. They can change the way society thinks. Organizations are built consciously. They come out of a strategy. They build alternatives. They skillfully engage communities most impacted by injustice. They can change the way society works. The process of social change requires both movements and organizations, but only organizations can sustain the struggle for the long haul. At Causa Justa Just Cause, we organize Black and Latino families who are the canaries in the coal mine of the crisis that the 1% has created here in the Bay Area and throughout the world. Being a nonprofit 501c3 didn't stop us from collaborating extensively with Occupy or from taking direct action confrontationally against big banks. In fact, we use the nonprofit structure to raise money for that and to put people of color and women at the center of the debate. And isn't that what we need? We shut down Wells Fargo half a dozen times. Our nonprofit structure facilitated national level coordination, and that led to successfully shutting down the shareholder meeting of every big bank in the United States this spring. Right? Without the engagement of radical nonprofits like Causa Justa, without the crucial contribution of organized collectives like Occupy the Hood and Occupy Patriarchy, Occupy would have remained white-dominated, male-dominated, and English only, just like Congress and just like Wall Street. Without organization, our movements are doomed to replicate the oppression that exists in our society that brought us together in the first place. What kind of movement do we want to build? Raise your red card if you want to press people to lead our movement. From the outside of the movement, you could think the movement that overthrew Jim Crow in this country looked purely spontaneous, but it was not. Black churches were the backbone of this movement. Organizations like SNCC and CORE and SCLC sustained the struggle over the long haul and were present today in Occupy. Depriving the 99% of organization only serves the 1%. The power of the 1% is so deeply entrenched in our economic system, in our social structure, in our electoral system, that we cannot fight them without organizations of our own. They have the Chamber of Commerce, the World Trade Organization, the World Bank. What is a non-organization movement going to do to contend with these highly organized forces? We, the 99%, need organizations, collective, accountable places to build unity, collective, accountable places to do battle with the injustice in society and to build a movement that reflects the world that we want to build. And that is the only way that we will build the profound revolutionary transformation that the 99% deserve.
All right, so while you're kind of thinking about which side or both sides, I just want to have us give an enormous round of applause for our debaters. Woo! I want to just tell you something about these debaters that I didn't want to say in the beginning to make them more nervous. They have never met each other before this debate. And they coordinated this over many, many months of, back and forth and calls and email. And really you can see the amount of work that went in it. And it was truly a competition in the best sense, I would say. Jan Masaoka, Anne Ryan, Maria Poblet, Libero Della Piana. I think this really might be our best debate yet, and that even is pushing my debate last time aside. So, how humble. Anyway, now, just for our final thing, all right, so you, again, can vote for the green team, the red team, or both teams, and they will vote as well. All right, so raise your cards. What do you want to say? Okay, I'm looking around, and I'm saying I officially declare this debate ends in a draw. Just as we wanted. All right, so final thing we want to do actually is give whoever wants to of the speakers just a chance at your table, at your using your own mic, to say a little bit about what you actually really thought of, not only the resolution, but actually of the arguments that were made, which were pretty amazing. I mean, I was like, whoa, that's a zinger. So that's just great. So anybody would want to start? Libero, you want to start? Okay.
Well, this is just mine. I just have a graphic representation here. Okay, so like movement, heart, organizational structure.
Movement, heart, organizational structure, right. But that's what we're looking for. Libero.
I think that these debates are great because they force you to think through these things which we face in much more nuanced and gray ways, but to draw the line sharply forces you to really think it through. And, I definitely think that nonprofits are going to be a key part of any kind of agenda going forward, but I do think that we need more nonprofit organizations, and not just movements, but organizations that are outside of those legal structures. And how do we do that? In other countries, they have much more experience with this, and we don't. And this debate kind of, I think, puts back on the agenda the question of, all right, how do we build organizations without nonprofits? Not just movements, but organizations, and how do we sustain them, and how do nonprofits relate to them?
Mm-hmm. I think that's a really excellent question. That the debate posed organization versus non-organized, but there are actually a lot of formations in between. Very important. Maria, want to say something?
Yeah, I think both movements and organizations are really important. I was bummed when I had to choose the organization side, actually, because in my work, I'm mostly talking about why we need to build movements and why organizations need to take it upon themselves to contribute to movement building, and not just to doing things that benefit your organization, because that's gotten us where we got today. And building that movement building ethic in social justice organizations, including 501c3s, is very important, as it is to challenge the many 501c3s that don't do much for anybody. And
none of those are here today, though. Other places.
Of course. They're all absent. They're at a different conference at a fancier hotel. But the relationship, I think anybody who's serious about progressive social change needs to look at, not at movements or organizations, but what is the relationship between the two? What is the dynamic process that engages and gives structure to movements and gives spontaneity to organizations? Because our organizations are a little stuck sometimes, we do things a certain way. And then movements kind of raise all these questions about, hey, how about getting unstuck? How about the revolutionary imagination that can help us imagine a different world? And organizations have a lot to offer, which we made in our arguments, a lot of points around that. And I've been involved in in organizing the first and second U.S. social forums, which were movement building spaces. Intended to look at the relationship between organizations and movements and build that. I just came back from the organizing assembly for the World Social Forum, which will take place in Tunisia in March of next year. And the movements in that region are looking to both come together and to develop the level of organization that will allow them to get to the next stage of this revolutionary democratic transformation. And I feel that that is a key task of our movement. How do we build those structures? How do we engage in that dynamic consciously? How do we take the progressive movement to the next level in terms of its ability to make change for the 99%?
Great, thank you. Yeah, I do want to comment that how do we pick the affirmative and the negative is partly to actually have people argue a little counter to what you would think. So that's a little bit how the teams were put together. You guys did a great job, all of you. Ann, do you want to say anything?
Yeah, I won't restate what Libero and Maria have already said so eloquently, but I will say that nonprofits are awesome and movements rock, but taxes are cool too. And I owe a lot of that opinion from what Kim Klein has taught me, but I just wanted to bring into this conversation a little bit about government, which I know is sometimes hard because in nonprofits and movements, we see so many people suffer at the hands of really awful government policies and government decisions. But I think what's nonprofits and movements really need to put their energy to, especially this election year, is making sure that government is what we want it to be, and that our taxes are spent how we want them to be, and that everybody pays taxes to begin with. And because government has really we got some good basics from government, and I think nonprofits and movements are really credited to making them a lot better, including schools and human dignity and workers' rights and healthcare. And so I just want to say that I hope that nonprofits and movements can contribute to making government what we want it to be so we can heal some of the wounds that it's caused in the past, and some of the people who have caused those wounds can find a new line of work.
Great. All right, this brings to a close the debate. I'll ask you again to give them a round of applause as they leave the podium.